Welcome to the How Did They Do It Real Estate Podcast. Have you ever wondered how people succeed in real estate and what steps they took to get there? If so, this podcast is for you. Your hosts, Sayla and Eileen Prack, interview top experts in the real estate community to share with you their real estate journey and how they achieved massive success. Our goal is to provide you with valuable real estate resources and to help you apply it to your own real estate goal. Welcome to today's episode of the How Did They Do It Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Eileen Prack. And today our guest is Dr. Tudor Francu, who is in Maryland, Virginia, and a DC licensed anesthesiologist. He's also a solo practitioner with extensive experience in outpatient surgery anesthesia. And aside from being an experienced physician, he is also an entrepreneur who built 2 medical service companies with a focus on patient satisfaction. Currently, he manages Stellar multifamily enterprise, helping investors identify the right opportunity to add to their real estate investments to provide cash flow, to beat inflation, capital appreciation, and take advantage of depreciation and secure tax advantages for investors. So Tudor, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Eileen. Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to address your audience and maybe provide some hints for future investors.
So Tudor, can you share a little bit more about your background and how you got started with real estate?
Yeah, so as you said, I'm an anesthesiologist. Currently, I practice part-time. I built 2 groups over the years. I have an extensive network of surgical centers that I provide services to. And slowly, in the past 20 or so years, I gradually started investing in real estate and kind of start that journey a while ago. And now basically full-time in multifamily apartment building investments and try to help other investors like me, normally, high-income professionals that have a lot of interest of investing their money in something real.
When you first started with real estate investing, was it multifamily initially, or did you get into another asset class prior to that?
Yeah, no, it was not multifamily because I was actually a little bit scared of it, to be honest with you. And like anybody who doesn't have experience or much experience in real estate, I thought initially the way to go is to, start small and build up from there, which is not necessarily a mistake. It's just that this was my journey and I think everybody can maybe relate to it. So I started off with small single family home investments for rentals and try to accumulate them over the years. I built up a pretty, nice portfolio at some point. And I realized that the amount of time as well as the amount of money that I put in was basically the same as I would have invested in, let's say, 100 or 200 unit apartment building, with much less headache. And I wouldn't have done this by myself. I would have been in a team where I could leverage other people's resources and qualities like I do right now in multifamily. So obviously each section, single family or multifamily, has their advantages and disadvantages, but I think overall the scaling part of it is definitely towards multifamily.
So talking a little bit about that fear of and that limiting belief that you had initially about you had to start smaller first before you got into multifamily, at what point and what changed your mind to be able to get into that space?
Yeah. When I started in single multifamily homes, this was, more than 20 years ago, listening to Robert Kiyosaki, who was probably the most definitory mentor in my real estate journey. At that time, he was very convinced that this is the way to do it. Start with single family, build up from there, get a little bit of cash flow every month from each property and try to, scale your portfolio like that. And I did that. But now retrospectively, I'm thinking, well, at that time, probably it was the right thing to do. But now if I would have started, I would probably start with small apartment buildings, maybe not 100 or 200 units, but definitely something in the size of like 30, 40, 50 units that you can definitely do it. It's doable as a real estate investor that starts off in this field, and get a team around you that you can help with. And definitely the amount of time you would spend by managing that kind of portfolio would be much less than, let's say, 30 single family homes. Also, obviously, when you have a tenant moving out on a single family home, it's hard because you have a 100% vacancy, right? On that property. On a multifamily building, when you have one tenant moving out of 30 units or 100 units, that's negligible compared to the size of the property. So you can definitely manage that much better. So as I said, retrospectively, I would probably start with the small apartment building units right now rather than single family homes.
Did you start off when you made that transition from single family to multifamily? Did you start off as a limited partner first, or did you do more of an active role as a general partner?
Yeah. So at that time, I had, as I said, a sizable single family portfolio rentals. And I realized that if I want to scale my time and my profits and my cash flow, I would have to move up to multifamily, which is definitely an exponential way to do it. But I didn't have any experience in it. And the first thing I did, I associated with some groups that would do this and start investing as a limited partner with them. Not because I wanted to get, better profits or anything, but I just want to learn the business. So I asked them to, include me if possible in their due diligence, in their underwriting process, the way they choose their team members, the way they do their renovations and CapEx projects on that asset. So little by little, I'll start getting information in and out. I read a lot of books about it, and I network with a lot of people. So I would say, the end, your net worth is your network, right? So that's the basic line. The more people you talk to, the better idea you have, and you start applying them.
At what point did you transition from a limited partner after you started building up your knowledge, invested with another sponsor first to learn? At what point did you transition, and how did you make that transition into the general partnership?
Yeah. After I did probably about 5 or 6 investments as a limited partner in different properties in different areas, different locations, and more or less with different teams. So I have a better overview of how people communicate with their limited partners. That was one of my top quests, I would say. How open is the communication? What things are communicated to the limited partners if something is not going right with the property? Nobody expects things are perfect. Each property had different issues to address. And the more we know about it, it's not that we're mad about it as a limited partner, but we need to know because we're investors, and we need to know what the solution is of that team. So after I did that, I started to think that once I acquire more knowledge and more experience in doing this, I associated with a team that needed someone like me with a background of entrepreneurship and business development, capital raising, and overall, a exposure to my professional network. That team, would need someone like me. And I tried to find that team and try to appeal to them. And I said, look, I'm willing to learn. I haven't done this before. Everybody starts somewhere. Give me a chance to get into this business. So they were very happy. I'm very grateful. They call me and say, yeah, let's get on the team. Let's see what we can do and whatever you can help with. And I provided a lot of support, knowledge-based, I would say, and business ideas and different takes, I would say, out of the box ideas that I had, and also help with capital raising for the property. I have a background, I'm an immigrant, basically came in the United States with nothing 20 something years ago. And obviously I'm someone who thinks out of the box. I'm a little different than most of other people. And I think in a way different to solve some business issues. So I think there was a plus for them. So from that point on, after the first deal was done that way, people, I think, recognize my values and basically the business part of it that I can bring up to a deal, and offer starts coming in. And at that point, you just have to do your due diligence, pick up the good locations, pick up the good team, the sponsorship teams, and see what makes sense for you as a general partner and also for your investor network, because ultimately that's what you report to and that's what you need to take care of. Your investors network, your investors' money, and see what you can do to improve the tenants, the life of the tenants and the property that you're taking over with them.
When you mentioned that, you came from an immigrant background and you came to the United States, what do you think was the thought process, or what was in your background to help you think about different ways to build yourself up in this country, starting out with nothing and continuing to persevere to where you are today?
I think the main component here with someone leaving their comfort zone and stepping into a very uncomfortable situation, not knowing a lot about it, I think that's the drive that I have behind me. You cannot progress, you cannot grow without getting out of your comfort zone. So I think this was my whole life idea in general, that I want to do things that I can learn about, I'm not comfortable with, but I can master them. And I did this in many aspects of my life, not only being an immigrant or getting into multifamily or medicine, or, I do many other things as hobbies that follow the same direction, basically. So I think as an advice for listeners would be, if you want to grow, you need to get out of your comfort zone and try things that you initially would not think they're possible, but they are.
What helps you get over that initial fear? Because you've gone on, this entrepreneurship journey. You went on to become a physician as well. You've grown your business to where it's at today. So within each step and each new journey that you undertake, what allows you to push past those fears and get out of your comfort zone?
I think the main point here for me is networking. I think I like being social and meet new people and listen to new ideas and try to brainstorm with quality people. And I try to put myself in situations and in environments that would do exactly that. I don't need to be the most smartest person in the room. I don't want to be the most intelligent person sitting in a classroom. I want to be the last one. I want to be the one that soaks up everything that's around me. So initially it's frightening. It's maybe for some people very anxious to be in that position, but that's the way you grow. That's the way you elevate yourself, I would say, to the level of people that you are looking to be like. And, as soon as you start surrounding yourself with people that you want to be like, it comes to you automatically. It's this classic saying, you're the average of the 5 people you most likely surround yourself with.
When you're networking, and especially in the beginning part, when you're looking for that right team to break into this space as more of a general partner and active side, what were some of the things that you were looking for, and how did you recognize that this was the team that you wanted to be part of? And how long did that relationship building happen prior to getting into, the first deal together?
It's there's some points that I'm looking for in a team. First of all, I don't want a team that's too big. The bigger the team, the less responsibility each one has. And I think that diluting the responsibility would damage the relationships in between the team members and also the final outcome. So I'm looking for a team that, is reasonable small, usually 3 to 4 people or 5 people max as a sponsorship team. The other point I'm looking at is the way their track record is. If they have not necessarily a successful track record all the way, because it's hard to accomplish that nowadays. I mean, some properties do go very well, some properties don't go very well. And it's not necessarily the sponsorship team fault, but I want to see a progress in their track record, like where they started from and where they're getting to, like how they progress through this management issues that they are dealing with in those properties. Another point that I'm looking for is the way they communicate with me, with other team members in the sponsorship team, and with their investors. Like a frequent, honest, transparent way of communication, even if things are not going well. Some properties they're not able to provide distributions right away. They have challenges with the staff members. They have challenges with the CapEx projects, natural disasters, or anything that can come up all of a sudden. They need to deal with. The way they communicate to the other team members is very important, because at the end, we're all a team right there. So we all need to be on the same page. Another point that I'm looking for is the way they handle themselves, because the way you are as a person will reflect on the way you are with other people. And obviously you establish a personal relationship with these team members over time, and you kind of realize how they carry themselves in meetings, how they carry themselves in a social situation, in just regular, having a coffee or a lunch, or, the way they talk and they portray themselves as a businessman, basically. So all these things have I would say they go into like a little funnel for me, and they come out as a final product or a final decision based on all these factors. And I can say I'm not right all the time. I made mistakes. Everybody does. But as long as you realize and you learn from them, that's the main point. I've been in teams that they're not very well communicating with me or with other team members. They had issues and flaws personally that came out in the business aspect of it. So, I would say that it's a learning process all the time. That's the bottom line.
So Tudor, for you, I have to ask also, because you're a very successful entrepreneur already outside of multifamily investor, as well as you've built up a really high income earner career, a very, very well-respected physician. Why did you go into real estate initially to begin with? And why was it important to build up your wealth and thinking about things on that side of the things instead of just continue to maintain down that path of going and building out the physician aspect of it?
For me, I think real estate came to mind as the primary investment method for my savings, because I grew up in a society as a child in a communist country in Romania that had very little, financial education at that time. And then, we didn't have the options of investing the money at all. But I noticed that in my family and historically with in Europe, people would invest their money in either land or buildings. And when I was a kid, I was like, why are they doing this? What's the point? Like, what do you do with the land or with the building? It's not going to produce anything to you. And when I came to the United States, I said, well, let me see what can I apply from what I know. And I realized that there was a much logical, makes sense for me to invest in something real that doesn't go away. The government can take it, they can destroy it, and it grows over time and produces cash flow for you every month. And at the end, I found out probably the biggest advantage for me as a high income earner was many tax advantages that I can take by owning those properties. So this time, then I was like completely taken out by this type of investments rather than investing in stocks and bonds and mutual funds, which for me, not only that I don't have control over those things, and I realize that it's not something that I would pursue on a regular basis, but I would try to focus my attention to real estate properties rather than any other investments. So I like something, I invest in something that I can touch, being that real estate property, being that, precious metals, art, whatever objects or, values that I can touch. That was my principle.
And so, Tudor, what is next for you and what are you focusing on in the upcoming future?
Yeah, so I'm very excited about the future, right? I think economically, we're going through a very interesting time right now. People are a little bit disillusioned with what happened. We've been through a pandemic for 2 years. Things are like unsettling, and a lot of people change their minds in what they're going to do with their careers. Most people retired. They don't want to work anymore. It's hard to find staff. So there are many things that are in play right now, but I think the main focus for me, I would say, in the future would be to look for those properties that are either disadvantaged or left untouched, or people didn't take care of them. And their tenants, their life's there. Their people live there. That's their home. And for me, that's the most important aspect, I would say, in investing in multifamily right now, because I want to, I took care of my tenants in my single family homes. Each of their families meant something for me. And now I can relate to a multifamily building and try to make things better for their families also in a scale that it's much bigger than a single family home. And I think that's my future for focus for the future right now, to look for properties that can be improved, that can be revamped and made better for their tenants. And if you do that, automatically everybody else wins. I win as a general partner with my reputation. My investors win as a limited partners, and they get, cash flow and distributions and return on their money. And families there in the building, they live better. That's the bottom line.
And Tudor, I want to go back to another one of the points that you had made earlier about being a high income earner and getting into multifamily. You're able to take advantage of a lot of different tax advantages being within real estate. How did you build up your knowledge, and how did you know how to apply the different types of opportunities on that front to what you're doing today as a high income earner as well?
This is an interesting subject, and it's probably very helpful for many high income earners and professionals in general, because most of us are trying to focus on our profession in general, and that's our main focus. And it was mine all along. But I realized that if I don't learn something else than my profession, and how do I make the most of our money that I'm making, I'm going to work for the rest of my life. And not that I don't like my profession, I love my profession, but I don't want to work the rest of my life doing that. So the thinking was, what can I do to accomplish that? The main thing that came to mind, and I realized with real estate multifamily investments is that one of the biggest advantage is the tax savings account advantages that you can take as an investor. And Robert Kiyosaki has the perfect cash flow quadrant that everybody should study. Being an employee, a self-employed, a business owner, and an investor. And obviously, going through all the stages myself, I realized that the investor part is the most important part that you can get to if you don't want to work the whole life in what you're doing. It's not how much money do you make in your profession. It's how much money do you keep and how much money do you invest. I personally think that I have very little savings in cash because I don't like to keep cash. Cash is not bringing me anything. You have to grow your money like you grow anything else in your life. And if you don't take care of your money is not going to take care of you when you need it in retirement. So the more you study ways to grow your money, the better you'll be at the end. In multifamily, especially, it's a compound effect. And by the way, that's one of my favorite books too. It's called The Compound Effect. It's a snowball growing bigger and bigger, right? Because once you accumulate one property, let's say 100 units, and you accomplish what you want with your CapEx and you improve the life of the tenants, you end up selling that property in 3, 5 years, 7 years, whatever it is. You roll that money over in a different property. Not only that you gain a lot of cash flow over the years and take advantage of your appreciation from that property, but also your depreciation from tax savings makes a lot of difference. So you end up in a, let's say, 10-year cycle, starting with one property and accumulating more. You end up in 10 years with having exponentially more money by accumulating all these advantages that a multifamily gives you. It's hard for someone to do that with any other investments. And I would challenge everyone to have a discussion on this and think about what else can you invest your money in to have all these advantages lined up for you. A good cash flow, a good tax depreciation, a good value on an investment at the end and appreciating value when you sell, and have all this hundreds of people basically in your hand, and their lives getting better and better year by year.
And Tudor, how has real estate investing impacted your life?
Well, it's kind of my life right now. I would say I'm very focused on this. I love doing this. I love growing my portfolio, and the way it impacted my life is tremendous. Not only financially, but in terms of accomplishments in terms of how you relate to your team members. I got to know a lot of people. I got to expand my network a lot. I can call a lot of people for any other needs in my life that I have, just by knowing them from real estate networking. So the social aspect is very important for me. The financial aspect, obviously, as I said, there's no better way to invest your money because you get all these aspects from it. And also it's a sense of accomplishment in your life. We tend in multifamily to speak of how many doors do we have, right? It doesn't necessarily mean anything like how many doors do I have. It doesn't mean that. It means that how many families I'm actually taking care of and be responsible for, because I'm the owner of that building. So if something happens there, it's an accomplishment for me to make the things better and their lives better. So even if I have 5,000, 10,000 doors, I don't have doors. We should say 5,000 or 10,000 families That's what we should talk about, because that's the bottom line. You are responsible for people's lives. And that's a big thing for me.
I love that. That's the first time you hear about it, and then you're like, okay, I know that the tenants and the residents, they live here. We're providing the housing and shelters for them. But instead of talking about the doors, talking about how many families you're supporting, that's a really, really amazing way to think about it as well. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
What is the one thing that you know now about real estate that you wish you knew when you first started?
I don't know. How much time do you have? So I think this is always a tough question, because you have to think retrospectively. And I would say the first thing, as I said, I would probably start, instead of single family home, to speed up my investment cycle. I would start with small multifamily buildings and progress from there. If you're scared of owning 100 or 200 apartment building, you're right. It's scary, right? For anybody. But if you think about the amount of time and amount of money you're putting in, it's the same as you would do any other real estate transaction for a single family home. So I would get rid of that fear and just dive in. Another thing, retrospectively, I would say find a good mentor early in your life, because this would make a ton of difference. It would save you time, and it would save you money. And actually, it would save you lost money. I had a transaction that didn't go through. I lost some money. And finally, we pulled the plug before we impacted other families' lives. So we took a hit as a general partners, but we made that thing work for other people. We learned a lot from it. And I would say the better mentor you can get, the earliest, the better. You learn from someone else that did this thing, and you don't repeat that mistake. So it's a plus for you. So I would look for a great mentor as early as possible. Another thing, retrospectively, for a new investor would be educate yourself. Before you invest in any other properties, invest in yourself first. Make sure you have the knowledge before your investors have. Read a lot of books, network with a lot of people, go to a lot of conferences. You learn a lot from each of them, and educate yourself. So personal development for me, it's a big thing. I always read, I always listen, I always go to motivational speakers, to personal development conferences. It's something that you cannot compensate otherwise. You need to do that for yourself, not for anybody else, but for yourself. The more you grow, the more other people around you will grow, including your investors, including your team members. And you transfer that knowledge to them by educating them in return. Like, I have a lot of limited partners and investors in my team that they don't want to, they don't have the time to, and they don't care to learn anything about this. They just want to have a good investment avenue that they can put their money in, and they grow their money. That's all. So I need to compensate that for them. I need to know what to do with their money because that's a big responsibility, and I take that very seriously. I need to educate myself first before I ask someone to give me money to invest in my properties or their properties. So that's a big thing for me. I would say my focus in the future would be to provide this educational platform that I can build for my investors, and everybody can learn from it. That's why I work on my website almost every day, adding stuff, trying to answer questions, trying to think of ways that I can provide value to my investors, and a little bit of knowledge every day so they know what they're getting into. Not necessarily to teach them, but to know that where they put their money, it's a safe place, and I'll take care of it.
And Tudor, what is the one thing that sets the successful people apart in real estate investing?
I think the main difference is made in real estate investors makes a decision to take the responsibility not only for their tenants' lives, but for their investors' money. So it's a double responsibility here that there are very few people that can do it right. And I know I'm working every day to get to that point. And that's my goal in the future, to get to that point where I be confident that I can for sure improve the tenants' lives, my tenants' lives, and also I can provide my investors with some extra income. But as an entrepreneur, you have to bring all your knowledge, all your experience from the business side of you to put it into multifamily and see how can you solve some problems that other people can't, or think of an out of the box solution, or reach to people that you know in your network that can help you with this task. You have to be creative. You have to be different. And I'm not saying I'm in any way superior or smarter than any other person. I just think that an entrepreneur in general is someone who can better solve such problems than, let's say, someone who just don't want to learn about it, or has a full-time job and focuses on that. So that's where we're coming in. We're coming in with extra ideas, extra solutions, extra network that we have, and bring people together to solve something that it's hard to solve in general.
And Tudor, where is the best place our listeners can find out more about what you're doing?
Yeah, so I think the best way probably to contact me is through my website. It's stellarmultifamily.com. So I think that's the best way to reach out to me. I have a lot of information on my website. You can also listen to my podcasts and ideas and newsletters, see all the deals that I'm doing and how I do it. So I think it's a good informational and educational platform. I'm also on social media. If you want to reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram, have also a YouTube channel. So I think people could easily find me if they want to.
Awesome. Well, Tudor, thank you so much for all of your time today. I really appreciate it. And I really enjoyed our conversation.
Sure. I appreciate that too. And thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for listening to our podcast today, brought to you by Bonavest Capital. We would really appreciate it if you can go to iTunes right now and leave a rating and written review. Also, please don't forget to subscribe so you can always get the latest episodes. You can also connect with us on Facebook, How Did They Do It Real Estate. We'd love to hear your feedback and any topics that you're interested in for future episodes. Lastly, to learn more about us, you can go to bonavestcapital.com and fill out the Contact Us page so you can speak to us directly. Nothing on the show should be considered as specific personal advice. Please consult your legal, tax, and real estate professionals for individualized advice.